So for those that have been following my channel for a while, you probably have figured out that I like tube stuff. And even though I've recognized that modeling and digital modeling, all this stuff is very handy, especially if you're traveling, especially if you don't want to bring a bunch of amps with you. I just love the feel of tubes. I know that everyone, not everyone, but some people are thinking, old man, yelling about tubes again. It's just one of those things that whenever I play through tube amps, it's not even necessarily about the sound, it's about the response, the feel of playing through this thing. And it just, there's this give and take, this push and pull. And while modeling, a lot of modelers, especially like the neural modeling type of stuff, it gets close. It gets closer, I think, than like digital modeling, which is a little bit, it's done differently. It's just not the same thing. I do realize that tube amps are expensive. They're heavy, like crazy. Most of them, obviously, especially if you're playing like a 100-watt amp and a big 412 cabinet, that sort of thing. But again, as a gigging musician myself, there are times where, I just don't want to drag most of the time, I don't want to drag a 412 cabinet. So I usually take a small cabinet and I usually run IRs. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? I get my tube stuff, and then I also have a great sounding impulse response cabinet simulation that goes to the front of house or mixer or if I'm recording into my interface. With that, I have some new units that I've been checking out that I'm really loving. I want to show them to you as well. There's 3 different ones from Friedman, and they're all similar-ish because they're all dirt, right? But they all are completely different. And I would use each one in sort of a different way, kind of depending on what kind of music I'm playing, I think. So, but I'll let you decide, see what you think, and let's go check them out. So I have 3 different ones here. I have the IRX, I have the IRD, and I have the IRJ, which is pretty new as of the time I'm making this video. The IRX is still kind of plexi-ish, but not super high gain. But what you have here is 2 different channels. On this particular one, it's 2 completely different channels, and it does have a boost. So the boost has on the side little dials that you can dial in what you want the boost to do. So what it actually does on this particular one, as you dial in this boost, it not only gives a little bit more clipping, and it also changes sort of the volume. You have a volume control that you're going to be able to change simply by dialing in. So that's your output volume. Over here is going to be like the overall boost gain sort of structure. So a lot of variability here. 3-band EQ, and we have IRs here. I'll show you that in just a minute. Right now, I'm running it from the effects send into right now my Bravado amp. So what that really does, I'm bypassing the preamp of my Bravado amp, and I'm just using the 6L6 back end. So basically just using the power amp and using the IRX as my preamp. So I have 2 channels, and with the boost, you could kind of say almost like 4 channels. So in this situation, the cab IR it's not in a signal chain at all. And it's worth noting too, on all these pedals, these tubes are running at high voltages. I've done tube-based videos before, and what we have found out is that there's a lot of tube pedals out there that just don't run at these higher voltages. They're used kind of more like clipping diodes, which is what you'd find in like a solid state pedal. Solid state being a typical analog distortion or overdrive pedal. Now on this top channel here, on channel 1, we have a bright switch, which is, it would be a lot like what you'd find on, let's say, a deluxe reverb or something, or twin reverb, where you have a little bright switch, 3 positions here. So in the same way, if you have a twin reverb that's cranked up all the way volume-wise, bright switch doesn't do anything because it's effectively out of the signal path. So same sort of thing here. If you want the bright switch to work, you need to have this gain back down a little bit. And on the second channel here, you have a tight switch, which really kind of controls like sort of a low-end resonance, sort of a low-end thump. So often, if you have a lot of gain, sometimes you want to dial that out so it doesn't get too muddy or too bass heavy. All right, let's check it out. I'm going to stay on channel 1 right here. So I'm actually going to put this in the middle because I'm going to raise the gain quite a bit. And it really, like I said, it's not going to change the effect of that bright switch. I'm going to lower the volume though, and we'll compare channel 1 with channel 2. I'm actually going to go on the side here and I'm going to change the amount of clipping that this boost channel is going to get. Basically going to crank the gain structure of that boost all the way up. I'm going to have to lower that volume down because it is going to increase the volume of that a little bit. Let's do the same thing for the channel number 1. We're going to increase that gain setting of that boost all the way up just so you can kind of see the difference of what's going on there. Oh, I should probably note too that since there are 2 different volumes, it's super awesome to be able to just have like a lead boost when you're playing live. Super handy. So as you can see, what you effectively have with just this pedal here is a 4-channel pedal, just because you have that boost that you have you have the parameters you can change on it there. And just for fun, let's go ahead. I'm using a different IR stack for this because this is my normal IRs I use for videos. I'm going to run out of this using one of the preloaded IRs that come with the pedal. So I haven't really messed with this. I haven't ran it to the software, so I haven't changed into the IRs. This is just what comes on at stock. I think, going from memory, it's one of Dave Friedman's cabinets that he made IRs of, so should be pretty cool. With the IRs in place, right now I'm starting on channel 1. And with the software, you can also load your own IRs with these pedals as well. So enough of the IRX, let's go to the IRD because it's kind of a different beast. A cool different beast, but still different. Okay, so the IRD here now, it looks exactly the same, different color, but it's actually completely different. This one actually can get a little bit cleaner, and I'm not really sure what topology it is. It's probably something still a little plexi-ish, but it has the ability to get cleaner, and you now have a switch that can add more gain as well as this boost switch. So tons of options again on this one. know if I mentioned it on this one as well, but this channel and this channel are actually the exact same thing. So even though you can get a lot of different tones, which makes it really handy to use, like this channel is a clean channel, this channel is a dirty channel. And plus with all these pedals, you can also control it with MIDI as well. So if you got a MIDI controller, you can do a lot of this stuff with your MIDI controller. Also IRs on this as well. Same sort of idea, just a totally different flavor of amp, so to speak. So IRD is probably is my favorite. Out of all these, I mean, I like them all, but I like how the IRD has the exact same channel. Just me personally, because I can dial in flavors of the same sound, and I just kind of like that. You can also see I got the mids cranked on it a little bit, and that's like my personal preference thing. Let me turn the dials a little bit on the EQ. Let's see what we got. So you're asking yourself, I didn't hear a change. Not much of a change. That's because on this pedal, I haven't dialed the gain up yet. So I'm going to dial up the gain with my little screwdriver here. You can use your fingers, but honestly, I have so many calluses on my fingers, I can't really feel the dials that well. So I got to use a little screwdriver. That's the difference. That's the IRD. Now let's check out the IRJ. So this is the newest one as I make this video. It's a Jakey Lee pedal. It's a beautiful red. I would call it a Ferrari red, maybe? I don't know, but it's gorgeous. And let's check it out. Higher gain on this though. Now this pedal, this channel here, channel 2, you get pretty high gain. I would call this JCM 800 plus some. So it's got this switch here that you can add even more gain to it. Of course, a bright switch on channel 1. And channel 1 has the cleaner side. So we'll start there and we'll just mess around with some dials. Dial in that little bit more gain there. So I would call that more of a plexi style thing. It just feels a bit more like sort of a modded plexi. I could be wrong. That's what it feels like to me. Now the boost channel though, this is cool. So there's actually like a Tubescreamer circuit in both these channels. And that's what this boost controls. The volume here is going to control the overall boost level like a second volume. So you can still use it like a solo boost. But you also have a volume and a tone here from that Tubescreamer circuit. So what that does is you can actually control like how much of a boost you're putting in front of that gain channel, just like you would use a regular Tubescreamer. So some people like to have the volume up quite a bit and just get a big push. And some people just want just a little bit of mid flavoring. So you can do that with the dials on the side. In fact, I'll show you the Tubescreamer circuit right now. Go back to channel 1 on the clean. So keep in mind, that's totally clean. That's just to demonstrate the Tubescreamer circuit inside. Now, generally, if you're playing a Friedman, you're probably not going to do that kind of chicken picking-y, Tubescreamer-y type stuff. But let's go ahead and get a little bit more dirt and throw the booster in front of it. So you see what I mean there? It's a really cool thing. It's awesome to kind of have a pedal inside of a pedal. Cool idea from the guys at Friedman. Let's go to channel 2. That's a cool thing. I really dig the idea that you have sort of the same sort of flavoring, but yet again, just a ridiculous amount of gain available because you have the gain switch, you have an already pretty hot circuit, plus adding more gain on top of it with the boot circuit. Awesome. So you might say, why are you running this into a tube amp? Well, that's because that's generally how I use it whenever I go gig. I'm running something like this, I would run into the power amp of my tube amp. So I have tubes and tubes, but that's not always possible. And sometimes you just don't want that. So I have two different amps here. One of them I would call a legitimate, sort of a turd of a distortion channel, the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. The amp's pretty decent, so I'm not pooping on that. I've done videos about this before. I'm just not a fan of that distortion channel. And then what happens when you run a high gain tube preamp into a solid state little amp here? So I'm running a Peavey Bandit. We're gonna run it into the Bandit. Let's check that out. All right, now, so we're back to the IRD. I'm running this into the power amp in of this Peavey Bandit. And again, I'm not really crapping like on solid state amps. I do like solid state amps, and I do think they have a place in guitar tone and music in general, for sure. With that said, we're gonna just play real quick this through that solid state amp, so you kind of get a feel for how it still is really lively, really bouncy. Man, just so so uncharacteristic of a solid state amp. It's just the gain is, I'm a little speechless, honestly. Before I made the video, I hadn't turned up the gain that much. And so I'm a little shocked at just how it feels like a freaking plexi. That's just amazing. Dave did a great job at this. All right, so that is the Peavey Bandit. Let's try running into the power amp in of this Hot Rod Deluxe. Let's run into this, and I'm going to start out with quite a bit of gain. With the IRD, we get cleans, we get a great clean, plexi style clean. We get more than enough gain than we would need. Well, more than I would need. It's a great thing. Through that amp, like, it brings a smile to my face to hear that amp sound like that. My hat is off to Dave. Like, you did a great job, man. Absolute great job. I'm wanting to take this pedal, this IRD, with me to a gig with that amp, just so someone could say, how are you getting the distortion channel to sound like that? All right, so enough gushing. Links in the description. See you next time with a new video.